The snow fell in thick, silent sheets across Manhattan, blanketing the city in a white hush that only Christmas Eve could bring. Inside a gleaming glass penthouse overlooking Central Park, Ethan Cole, the CEO of Cole Industries, sat in a deep leather armchair beside a fire that burned more for form than warmth. He was 38, successful beyond imagination but utterly alone. The room was decorated by professionals. An elegant 12-foot tree sparkled with silver ornaments. Presents wrapped in metallic paper lay untouched, and soft jazz played from hidden speakers. Yet the space felt hollow. Ethan stared into his glass of bourbon, its amber reflection dancing like the ghosts of a life he once wanted. Every Christmas for the past 10 years had been the same, a quiet evening of polite solitude, broken only by the soft hum of the city below. He didn't hate Christmas. He hated the memory it carried. 10 years ago, on a night just like this, his fiancée Clara had died in a car crash, driving home early to surprise him. Since then, the holiday became a symbol of guilt, of a life that might have been. He never remarried. He never even celebrated again. His assistant had tried to convince him to attend the company Christmas party earlier that evening, but he'd refused. He had no patience for fake laughter and empty toasts. Instead, he sat there staring at the fire, his only companion a photo of Clara smiling beside him at a long-forgotten Christmas tree. Outside, the snow thickened. A distant clock struck 10, and then, a knock. A firm, hurried knock echoed through the penthouse hall. Ethan frowned. Nobody ever knocked on his door. The building's concierge would have announced a visitor. He waited, expecting it to stop. But it came again, louder, more desperate this time. Setting his glass down, Ethan stood, straightened his shirt, and walked toward the door. When he opened it, the blast of cold air hit first, and then the sight before him froze him where he stood. A woman stood there, clutching the hand of a little girl, both shivering under the falling snow. The woman's coat was thin, her hair damp, eyes wide with apology and exhaustion. The girl, no older than 6, held a small box wrapped in newspaper and tied with red ribbon. "I'm sorry," the woman began, voice trembling. "Our car broke down nearby. My phone died and the lobby guard said everyone's gone. We didn't know where else to go." Ethan blinked, still taking in the surreal sight. "Please," she added. "We just need to stay warm for a few minutes." The little girl looked up at him, eyes bright despite the cold. "Mister," she said softly, "we brought this for Santa. Do you know if he's here?" Ethan stared at her. The innocence, the small box, the word Santa, and for a moment something inside him shifted. The fire crackled softly as warmth began to fill their frozen fingers. The woman, Maya Thompson, sat on the edge of the couch watching her daughter, Lila, press her small hands toward the flames. "Thank you," Maya murmured, her voice low but sincere. "We didn't mean to intrude. We were on our way to my sister's and the car just stopped. We walked a few blocks and this building was the only one with lights on." Ethan nodded, standing awkwardly nearby. "It's fine." He poured her a cup of coffee. The first act of kindness he'd shown anyone on Christmas Eve in a decade. When she took it, their hands brushed briefly, a spark of something human in the sterile perfection of his world. "So," he said after a pause, looking toward the little girl who now sat cross-legged on his expensive rug. "You're waiting for Santa?" Lila smiled brightly. "Yes! Mommy says Santa always finds good people, even the lonely ones." Ethan's breath caught for a moment, the words cutting closer than she could know. "What's in the box?" he asked, gesturing to the small crumpled gift still tied with red string. "Oh," Lila picked it up carefully. "It's for him, but maybe you can give it to him if he comes?" Maya laughed softly. She's been saving pennies for months. Wanted to give Santa a thank you gift for all the toys he brings other kids. Ethan almost smiled. "Almost. That's very kind of you," he said. Maya looked around the lavish room, the grand piano, the silent Christmas tree, the expensive emptiness, and then tilted her head. "Beautiful place," she said gently. "But it feels lonely." Ethan froze. "I like quiet." "Quiet and lonely aren't the same thing," she replied softly. For the first time in years, someone had said aloud what he'd buried. Silence hung between them. The fire popped. Outside, the snow kept falling, sealing them in a cocoon of warmth and memory. Maya's phone beeped faintly, the battery dying but just enough to show a text. Her sister was snowed in miles away. They wouldn't make it tonight. I guess we're stuck for a while, she said with an apologetic smile. Ethan hesitated, then, almost shyly, said, "You can stay until morning. There are guest rooms upstairs." Her eyes widened. "That's incredibly generous. Are you sure?" He nodded once. Lila clapped her hands. "Yay, sleepover!" And just like that, for the first time in a decade, laughter echoed in Ethan's home. Later that night, after Lila had fallen asleep under a blanket by the fire, Maya wandered quietly to the window. The city shimmered below, a sea of golden lights reflected in the snow. Ethan joined her, holding 2 mugs of cocoa this time, one for her, one for himself. Coffee seemed too formal, he said. Almost embarrassed. She laughed softly, accepting it. "So, Mr. Cole, CEO of this empire, I assume?" He smirked faintly. "Something like that. And you?" "Waitress," she said without shame. "And part-time everything else. Lila's dad passed away 3 years ago, so it's just us." There was no pity in his eyes and only a deep, quiet respect. They talked for hours, about life, about grief, about the strange ways people keep moving forward. He found himself saying things he hadn't said aloud since Clara's death. About the accident, the guilt, the endless silence that followed. Maya listened, not judging, not comforting falsely, just listening. "Maybe," she said softly when he finished, "you didn't lose her. Maybe she's been waiting for you to start living again." He looked at her, really looked, and saw warmth where he'd forgotten it could exist. Outside, the first light of Christmas morning began to touch the snow. Lila stirred and woke up, rubbing her eyes. "Did Santa come?" she asked sleepily. Ethan smiled, kneeling beside her. "I think he did." He reached behind the tree and pulled out a small box, one of the many unopened gifts meant for nobody. Inside was a delicate silver star pendant. He handed it to her. "For you, Miss Lila, from Santa, who told me you've been very kind this year." Her face lit up like the tree behind them. "Thank you," she cried, throwing her arms around him. And in that embrace, small, innocent, and pure, Ethan felt something melt inside him. The wall he'd built for 10 long years began to crack. When he looked up, Maya's eyes were glistening. "Merry Christmas, Ethan," she whispered. He smiled softly. "Merry Christmas, Maya." The next Christmas, the penthouse looked different. The tree wasn't silver anymore. It was covered in handmade ornaments, some crooked, some glittering with childlike chaos. Lila's laughter echoed through the halls as she ran around in reindeer pajamas, singing off-key carols. Maya stood in the kitchen, rolling out dough while Ethan, apron and all, tried to help, failing spectacularly. "You're terrible at this," she teased. "I run a billion-dollar company," he said defensively. "How hard can cookies be?" "Apparently harder than mergers." He chuckled, wiping flour from her cheek. Lila appeared suddenly, holding the same small box from last year and the one she'd once wanted to give to Santa. "I kept it," she said proudly. "But now, I want to give it to you." Ethan blinked, touched. "To me, why?" "Because Santa already gave me what I wanted last Christmas." He crouched down. "And what was that?" She smiled, that same pure, radiant smile. "A family." For a moment he couldn't speak. His throat tightened, eyes burning with emotion he couldn't hide. He looked up at Maya, the woman who had walked into his loneliness by accident, and somehow turned it into light. He opened the box. Inside was a simple wooden heart, hand-painted in red and gold. On it were 3 names: Ethan, Maya, Lila. The words below read, "Our first real Christmas." Tears fell freely now, not of pain, but of release. He took Maya's hand, pulled her close, and whispered, "You both saved me." She smiled softly. "No, you just remembered how to live." Outside, the city sparkled once again under falling snow, but this time, it wasn't silent. From the penthouse above Central Park came laughter, the sound of music, and the warmth of a family that fate had built out of heartbreak, kindness, and a Christmas miracle. He stepped aside silently and said, "Come in."